preparing, so in a few seconds. Okay.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out to talk about this most serious, but also most appropriate topic tonight. We are RUBI, which stands for Reparations and Universal Basic Income Exploratory Committee. And we invite you today to come, to talk, to share ideas, to engage with us in deep, thoughtful conversation. In a second, we'll go around and introduce the Reparations Committee. We are one part of a larger committee. And hopefully we are going to say something that ignites the imagination, excites the heart, and encourages action. So with that being said, I'll start off with our facilitator, my co-facilitator slash head of this committee, Ms. Brittany Wells.
Thank you, Damon, and good evening, everyone. It's going to be a great conversation tonight. Just to introduce myself, Brittany Wells. I am the Chief of Staff to Mayor Warren here at the City of Rochester, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Next, we have Ms. Kate Washington.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kate Washington. Look forward to the conversation.
All right. Following that, we have Reverend Myra Brown.
Hi, everyone. I'm Reverend Myra Brown, and I'm just excited to be on the Reparations Committee to have this conversation tonight. And so I hope that you will engage us and we'll learn something from each other tonight.
Next, we have Legislator Sabrina Lamar.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Legislator Sabrina Lamar. I am the Monroe County Legislator for the 27th District, and I am very excited to talk about reparations in hopes of bringing it to a city near you. Thank you.
And last but not least, we have Jerome Underwood.
And wonderful evening to everyone who's joining us live, or good afternoon or good morning to the folks who are going to watch this after. My name is Jerome Underwood, and I have the distinct privilege of serving as the Chief Servant of Action for a Better Community. I am proud founding member of the Black Agenda Group, and also extremely proud to be serving on this RUBI committee, and even more proud to have been assigned and raise my hand for the Reparations Committee. So hopefully tonight we'll have a very fruitful and engaging conversation about what I call a must, which is reparations.
All right, agreed. And my name is, again, Damon Wilson, and I currently serve as the program manager of the Thurston Road Village Project of Spiritus Christi Prison Outreach, as well as I am an associate minister for Memorial AME Zion Church. All right, so with all the introductions out of the way, let's get down to business. I have a quick presentation for us, a couple slides, nothing too long, but just kind of it's meant to orient us and get us going in a particular direction, kind of giving us a framework for our conversation this evening, because reparations is one of those topics that, depending on who you ask, you can get a different definition. So we want to start off our conversation by providing some groundwork and just, creating a situation to where we can all enter at the same point and talk about use the same language. So if you would give me a moment to get my screen together. All right. So, as stated before, RUBI, which stands for Reparations and Universal Basic Income. Just a couple housekeeping items. First, this is a listening session, which means that we are actually here to listen. We will be doing some talking, and we will facilitate the conversation, and we will, interject here and there. But for the most part, we want to hear from you. We want to hear what your opinions are. We want to hear how you feel about reparations. We want to hear what you would want a reparations program to look like here in the city of Rochester. So as we do that, we just ask for a respectful environment, one that allows people to say how they feel, and say what they think is right, but also give people the opportunity to disagree respectfully. So this is one of those topics that can and should, in some cases, spark robust conversation. So again, we just ask for everyone to be respectful of diverging opinions. If you would like to say a comment or ask a question, you can do one of two things. You can go into the question and answer box and type your question or comment. Or if you would like to come on screen, we have the function and the opportunity to bring you on screen so that you can say it for everyone to see and for everyone to hear. So the option is yours. But again, you have two ways to do it, either through the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, or if you want to come on screen by letting us know. All right. And last but not least, please remember to speak slowly and clearly, because we do have ASL interpreters on with us who are helping us and make sure that this meeting is inclusive as possible, where individuals who are unable to hear the wonderful things that you have to say, give them opportunity to join the conversation as well. All right. What are reparations? So basic definition is legislative and or court action designed to address historic injustices. You'll hear that word often in this conversation, historic injustices, because there is a historic nature to reparations, and how to properly address reparations, you have to deal with history. Also, reparations are programs that seek both to repair the past damage and to build something that will help bring about racial justice and equality. Another thing that you'll hear tonight is that a lot of people focus on where do we go from here? How do we make things better moving forward? And sometimes overlook the repair that needs to be done because of past situations. So a small list, and this is not everything, but a small list of types of reparations are public truth commissions, like we see in South Africa, how they dealt with apartheid, public apologies that we see governments give from time to time, statutes that impose duties on public and private entities to disclose their complicity in slavery and discrimination. And we see things like this starting to pop up a little bit more around the country. And now we move to the other side, where we see a little more controversy. So we have statutes that provide retroactive liability for private and public complicity. So as we see in a couple other areas, how the statutes of limitations have been extended to capture some of these racial crimes that have been done in the past, because as we know that we have a legal system, and the procedures of the legal system operate a certain way. Thus, one of the ways is providing a statute of limitation, saying that you cannot be charged for a crime past a certain time. So we see that a form of reparations is to open that up and extend that statute of limitations. Also, payments for community-based programs. We see that like for housing programs, as well as other type of programs, educational programs, things like that, scholarships. And it goes to one of the most controversial aspects of reparations, which is direct payments to individuals, something similar to what we've experienced recently with the stimulus payments. This is just a quick list of reparations programs that have happened here in the United States, just to show you that this is nothing new. Reparations has been going on for other communities in other parts of the world for a long time. But this is just a brief snapshot of what the United States has done in the form of reparations. As we see, as early as 1934, Congress passed the Indian Reorganization Act, which authorized $2 million a year in appropriations for the acquisition of their land. Moving down, we see that in 1971, around $1 billion and around 44 million acres of land was appropriated to the native population in Alaska as a form of reparations. In 1988, we see President Ronald Reagan signing a bill for $1.2 billion as an apology to approximately 60,000 living Japanese Americans who were interned or placed in a concentration camp sort of type during World War II here in America. We see that moving down, we see private organizations like JP Morgan and Chase offering an apology for their ties to the slave trade and offering $5 million in scholarships to Black students to attend college. Moving down to more recent times, in 2019, the City Council of Evanston, Illinois voted to allocate its first $10 million in tax revenue from the sale of recreational marijuana, something that the City of Rochester is looking to do itself. We actually have a convoy going to Evanston this week, matter of fact, to kind of lean on them and talk to them and see, what insight they have for us. And most recently, this year, matter of fact, the Congressional House Committee voted to recommend the advancement of Bill H.R. 40, which is the development and the study of slavery and its impact on America. So this hasn't reached the floor yet, but it has gotten out of committee, which is important. So this bill was originally introduced in 1989. So we see that it's taken a little while to actually get to the floor, but we're glad that it's finally getting to the floor because this work is definitely needed. Moving on to formal charge of the Reparations Committee. As stated earlier, we have been provided the opportunity to have legal marijuana in this state, and also have the opportunity for a portion of that money to be used for bettering communities that have once been harmed by the criminalization of this drug. So with that in mind, the City of Rochester has decided to look into different ways to use those funds to benefit the community, who was once detrimentally impacted by the criminalization of marijuana. Basic charges of this exploratory committee is to review universal basic income, reparations, and a city-sponsored home ownership program, and to talk about and create next steps for implementation of a program. This is a basic breakdown of our committee and how it's shaped. The overall committee is called the Reparations and Universal Basic Income Exploratory Committee. The two hosts of the committee are Chief of Staff Brittany Wells and Chief Equity Officer Dr. Cephas Archie. And from there, we're broken down into three distinct committees: Universal Basic Income, Reparations, and Home Ownership Program. All right. And as stated at the beginning, we are the Reparations Subcommittee. So our particular charge is to identify additional funding streams for a successful and sustainable reparations program, engage the community and tell the story of Rochester's history of slavery and discrimination, and as well as Monroe counties, and to submit recommendations to the mayor for a viable reparations program. So we are about 4 months into our work, and we're looking to wrap things up closer to the end of the year. But by that time, we want to have a successful and sustainable program on the mayor's desk with recommendations that will address some of the issues that we hope to hear from you tonight. So to close things out, as far as for the presentation, this was an article written by Justin Murphy from Rochester Democratic Chronicle, which was originally released in July of 2020, but re-released in June of this year. And it takes a look at the history of slavery here in Rochester. You know, people think that since we live in the North, that, you know, we really didn't have any involvement with slavery. But this article actually brings to light that the founder of our city, Nathaniel Rochester, was a slave owner. He originated in, or he moved up from Maryland, where he had a plantation, had slaves. He came up with about 20 or so of his slaves. And based on their labor and based on the profit of him leasing them out, he paid for the city of Rochester. So I said that to say that there is no part of America that is untouched by slavery and discrimination. So as we go into this conversation, and as we encourage you to participate in this conversation, we want you to, one, engage the truth of the city and the county's involvement in slavery and racial discrimination, but also, two, be willing to be open-minded in knowing what needs to be done now in order to, one, redress what has happened in the past, but also to prevent what can't happen in the future and what's happening now. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen. If y'all give me a second, and we can go ahead and get this conversation started. All right. So is there anyone at this point who has a question or wants to come on screen? Okay, well, I know that some of our panelists have some questions to get the conversation started. So panelists, if you want to say anything, this is your time.
So when we talk about reparations and what reparations look like, I can't help but think about what happened in Tulsa in 1921, and some of the steps that some of the steps that the mayor Bynum and a few senators around Tulsa are taking now. So their mayor's office has created, I think it's called the Equity and Strategic Planning for this very issue. And some forms of reparation that they're doing is things like a grave search. So people who were, well, first they issue a public apology to the Black Americans in Tulsa, and then one of the steps they're taking is to do an actual grave search, because a lot of bodies weren't found, or people were buried just really all over the place. And so when I guess there's no right or no wrong way to reparations. And so I'm hoping that tonight some of the people who are listening, who are tuning in, could offer up some suggestions on what reparations look like to you and a path to get there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We have James on the screen who would like to say a couple words.
Howdy, y'all. Sorry it's a little dark in here. I just wanted to log on and say that I support reparations and basic income in any form in the Rochester community as a Rochesterian. That's all I got. So thank you.
Thank you.
James, we're not gonna let you go that quick. First of all, thank you for logging on. You can unmute yourself, because I got a couple follow-ups since you're a first person to chime in. So what forms the basis of your support for reparations? You know, what's your thought process?
The basis of it, I would like to see an end to sort of the ongoing legacy of slavery and the ongoing sort of segregation and terrorism that was inflicted on Black communities. I would like just to see the basis of it. The basis of it is me talking to my friends and peers and really feeling the divide of what I describe as the ongoing legacy of slavery and how that puts up barriers between me and my neighbors, me and my friends, and how that's separated all of us, and how it continues to manifest in terms of just the political controversies that are all over the place and all of the anger and antagonism. And I would like to see that come to an end. I would like to see all of us sort of live in peace together, really, which is what it's all about. So that's sort of my basis.
Shade, well said. And how, with respect to reparations itself, James, how do you see reparations playing a role in as a means to the end you just mentioned of what I would call just the one love thing that Bob Marley's saying about? How do you see reparations playing a role in that?
I see reparations as playing a role in that because what the divide is fundamentally about is power. The divide that we see in housing and education and healthcare, all of these divides are really just about, white classes maintaining power. So money is in our society power, and with a redistribution of money is a redistribution of power and an empowerment of communities to be able to take agency and control over their own destinies by the form of being able to have a say and much more of a say in local governments and housing and how their communities look. So I see money as a form of power, which is really what slavery was all about, which is what Washington and money is all about. It's really just all a way of maintaining power and white supremacy. So I see reparations as a way of empowering communities through money that was deprived, not just during the time of slavery, but up until today. Does that answer your question?
It does, and thank you for indulging us in that. Pretty much, that's the type of interaction we're looking for people, whether they agree or disagree, but certainly putting meat on the bones of why they disagree. And you laid out your case quite eloquently. Thank you very much. I'm passing the mic back to you, Demar, or for anybody. I see Reverend Myra, I see you unmuted, so go for it.
No, I just think that I really appreciated James's insight and his sharing, given Rochester's connection with not only having Fitzhugh, Nathaniel Rochester, and Carroll using the profits from Black slave labor to buy this land, but the realities of the article Demond spoke about, where it was Black African enslaved labor that was used to drain the swamp in Rochester, to clear the forest area, to make this place habitable for all of us, to be able to live here. The ongoing harm that has been done in our structures, in our systems, even beyond that. There was a time when in New York State, if you were Black, you had to have twice as much property as white people to just vote. Like, the discrimination was compounded, as James says, it didn't just occur in a period of time. Then you had the racial discrimination in education that impacted Black children and children of color. Right? You had the housing discrimination against Black families. You had discriminatory covenants and urban renewal that divided Black communities and families and displaced them, that crowded them. You had the discriminatory, oppressive policing policies that impacted Black communities over periods of time that continue to impact us. The wage discrimination, employment discrimination. I mean, the list is just goes on in terms of the historical impact. And that I think it's really important to have these conversations about how do we repair the harm, and not from the position of people with power who lean into it with a fear of saying, well, we can't afford that. But we have afforded many things that cost far less than that. We've been in Afghanistan for 20 years, right? A 20-year war, spending trillions of dollars. And so I think when we're talking about this kind of historical harm, I think it's really important to hear the the victims of that harm and the targets of that harm, say what the terms need to be to put out what the terrain needs to be. And I think we need to have a real honest conversation about, how to heal the harm from those who have been benefactors and wrongdoing institutions. And so I'm very excited to be part of this conversation, to look at redress, to look at restitution, and to have real conversation that I think he was absolutely right. At the end of it, hopefully it actually brings some reconciliation and restores some relationships and sets us up differently as a community to move forward. So I think that is a blessing, or at least it could be as we move forward in this.
So as we have our next speaker to come on the screen, I just want to second that sentiment that the point of reparations is for reconciliation. Honestly, I think that, and this is my opinion, I'm speaking by myself, for myself, that if reconciliation isn't the goal, then the interests are misguided. Because it's one thing to say that, okay, we need to address wrongs, but what's the point of addressing wrongs? Normally, when you're in a relationship with someone, you want to address wrong because you want to either have some level of relationship with them moving forward. So sometimes because of past wrongs, it's hard for people to be in relationship. So definitely the redress and restitution is necessary, but I think the end goal should be to restore relationship. And I think we have our next speaker on the screen.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, LaShonda, welcome.
So, I'm very passionate about this topic. I know that it takes multiple generations, at least 3 generations, to move a family out of poverty. And there's some research that Prosperity Now did back in 2017 that stated that the net wealth of Black households is projected to hit 0 by 2053. So obviously that's very concerning to me. And I know that so much of what we're talking about, reparations and universal basic income, it's all intertwined with racism. And if we could eradicate racism, it will fix every problem that Black folks have ever had, since our existence in this country. Now, barring the eradication of racism, how quickly do you all project that we can move towards some policy that will help to close that wealth gap through either UBI, which is maybe just one solution to the problem, because we have also a 300-year wealth gap to close. So if everybody is getting universal basic income, it still puts Black people at the back of the race. And so what additional strategies and who and policy are working with this panel of folks besides the mayor's office to help move this forward quick enough so that we don't have to hit 0 and then try to backtrack because we're already behind?
I can respond to some of that because people on this panel are aware that I have been highly critical of the concept of using strictly policy as a way to address this, because obviously there's not enough money in the government. I don't care how long they keep writing these blank checks. There's not enough money in the government to actually support any of this. And I believe that we have to really look at, first of all, I tend to view reparations not as a program, because that in itself, it absolutely minimizes the value of it. It actually devalues the concept of reparations by calling it a program, because programs are inherently short-term. They're inherently driven by available cash. We know that there's not enough cash available for us to have a program. So our goal here tonight, LaShonda, short answer is there is no answer right now tonight to say how quickly. What we're here to do is to listen, to find out from the community what has value to them in the form of reparations. And then we are seeking it. My goal, I'll tell you my personal goal, my personal opinion on it is that I believe we should have a Black tax. Obviously wouldn't call it a Black tax, but I believe that we can tax people the way we have been taxed. We have been taxed for generations, and our wealth gap exists because we have been taxed to the max. And I say that we could do the same thing in the form of everything from transportation, trains, everything that moves, because the value that was created on the backs of Black people was leveraged from the bodies of Black people as collateralized debt in order to build all of these institutions. So that's it's a short answer, doesn't answer your question, because we don't have that answer tonight, but we're looking for your input on what you think you would like to see.
Well, I say we call it ace and a spade and call it a black tax. I'm all for that. I think the other thing I would love to see, and this is a very timely conversation for me because I have been doing a lot of research around this particular topic. I come from a background of poverty. I have a lot of family members that are still living in poverty. So I want to, contribute my efforts to anything that will help to alleviate poverty for the Black community. But even that stat that I shared in terms of the median net wealth of Black households hitting zero, many Black folks are not aware of that. And so how do we facilitate the conversation in Black communities to people who will not show up to a forum like this so that they are aware? And I think the more we're aware, we're empowered, and we can make some different decisions, and we can hold people accountable in a way that perhaps we didn't know we could before.
See, and that's I gotta jump right in there, because you said like 6 words, and so in no particular order of significance, the last point you made, how, there's a statement in every question. How do we, as my good friend and sister Jackie Dozier always say, how do we get this to the masses, right? And I think we need like 200 Myra Browns, right? And why do I say that? Because I think in every pulpit, is it called pulpit still?
It is
Yeah.
pulpit.
Yeah, because that has to be the sermon, right? Because, and I'm going to disagree. This might be the first time I disagree with Damon, and here's what I'm talking about. Because I don't think reparations is controversial at all, right? Reparations are an act of justice, right? And that right there, so in agreeing with Kit, not a program, is justice. Because if you take something from someone, like I've been using an analogy, let me see, Brittany. If I just went by Brittany and took her phone, right? Just took it. And maybe a couple of weeks later, I show up and say, I'm sorry, Brittany. I deeply apologize. Are we good? Of course not. I got to give her back the phone. And depending on how much time has passed, Kate, I may have to upgrade that phone. There is a preponderance of evidence that so much has been taken from us. They took the phone, they took the charger, they took it's time to give it back. And to your point, Lashunda, the time is crucial. So part of our work is to engage the community in conversation. And we know that, this is one medium to do that, but we got to hit street. We have to hit pulpit. We got to hit public market. We got to hit wherever the folks are. We have to get people excited, about the fact that justice needs to be meted out, because the REP in reparations is to repair, is we have to give it back. So when we talk about restorative, reparations is a restorative thing that everybody, and I was so appreciative of James's comments, because we're going to need a whole lot of Jameses too. No, well, let me not be cryptic. We're going to need a whole lot of white people who believe in justice to tell their cousins, their friends, their mamas at Thanksgiving, and they may get excommunicated, but at least they won't die. So justice is at the root of reparations, and that's my take on it.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. I love what Jerome is saying, that we have to take it everywhere. He's right. right? The pulpits. I think we also need to educate our children and our youth about this history of enslavement and the systemic structural oppression that has happened in an accumulative way to the Black community, and help us to see what sometimes is invisible, see what sometimes we're just too tired to pay attention to because we're so busy trying to survive and struggle. I also think that I happen to think that there is enough money to do repair, because if there was enough taken to profit from and to benefit from all these years that continue to profit and benefit, then there's enough money for return and for repair. You know, if we can spend trillions of dollars in a whole other country for over 20 years, and we can go back to the money press, right? And press it out, right? Until we get to the right number to offer the repair that is that has been happening in the Black community. So yeah, I think they ought to get to work, and, you know, and find those resources to do the repair and the restitution and the redress of the harm that's been done. And, you know, so I hope that you and others who are listening would just really share this. This is a recorded session. Share it, talk about it, you know, and have these conversations with neighbors and coworkers, you know, and push it in. These are great lunch conversations to have. You know, we talk all the time about, hey, I saw this movie the other night, you should check this out. It's like, hey, you know, I was part of this conversation the other night about reparations. You should check this out, right? And then let's talk about it.
Nice.
And if I could just jump in and first say thank you, LaShonda, for your thoughtful input. And you said a mouthful. And I was talking to Brother Damon earlier today about measurable outcomes and what does that look like? And should there be a research partner on this committee? And so when given your background, and I know that you've done a lot of research on this, it would be interesting if we could get some people on there to talk about what measurable outcomes look like, who's collecting data, what the data looks like, how to interpret it, and things like that. That's those are the things that I'm very, very interested in. So if you could stick around and poke your head around in our committee, that would probably be great.
I would love that. Absolutely.
Good. I do see in the chat someone posted a quote from Cesar Chavez stating, "The color of our skins, the language of our culture and native origins, the lack of formal education, the exclusion from the democratic process, all these burdens, generation after generation, have sought to demoralize us, to break our human spirit." Cesar Chavez. Thank you, Ms. Cruz, for your words of wisdom. Thank you for the words of wisdom.
And on that Cesar Chavez quote, shout out to Hispanic Heritage Month. We in it right now.
So we do want to offer anyone else who wants to, share a comment or have a question, either in the chat or come on screen. We participate your participation, because like Reverend Myra stated, we have to have this conversation. It has to become a part of the regular language vernacular that we use on a daily basis. Just like we talk about, what's going on in politics, like how we talk about the presidency, or how we talk about, what's going on in culture. We talk about the new, new songs that have dropped. It has to become part of the normal culture. And when it becomes a part of the normal culture, it's easier for people to talk about. And when it's easier for people to talk about, that's when we see more change happening. So.
I noticed in the chat
And I
that,
guess,
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I just noticed in the chat that LaShonda said that she plans to hold focus groups with Black folks. And I love that idea. Just want to note that and lift that up. That's a great idea. Another great way to spread the word and have conversations.
Right.
Sabrina, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I'm just interested in hearing from some of the attendees. If the city of Rochester had an opportunity to engage in a sort of a pilot program, what are some of the suggestions? What do the panelists think? I mean, not the panelists, but the attendees think would be like the first step, or just a suggestion towards the first step? I don't think it's fair for, a group of people to make decisions on behalf of an entire community. And I'm very interested in getting some of the community's input to make sure that we are doing things that are personal to them and that affect them. So yeah, that's what I'm interested in hearing.
So there's a question from, is it Majleen or Ms. Moore, in terms of if the committee is temporary. I'll answer that. So we were, if I can use the word, commissioned to do 6 months worth of work, whereby we, as Damon mentioned, we have to return in a report in about 7 weeks' time. However, we have many times said in committee that this is just the start, because the issue of reparations will continue, as far as I'm concerned, forever. If they put all the nines in the world in a check, from now until whenever, that'd be a nice down payment, Kate. It'd be a down payment. So this is a start of something that we expect to have some serious legs, and that's why the community engagement is so important, because as we, like LaShonda said, start having forums. This is the first one, and when it starts to come from the pulpit, and when it starts to be the conversation in the barbershop or the wherever we are gathered. As a matter of fact, tomorrow evening, I'm speaking to, we being Action for a Better Community, our board meeting. And in my report, we're going to be talking about reparations. So I would expect that everywhere, it has to become, top 2, 3, 4 things on agendas of wherever we are. So it's just beginning, Ms. Moore, and thank you for that question. And hopefully, wherever you sit or where you stand, you can be the one to raise it up there, and if necessary, call on any one of us to back you up on that.
The additional thing I would say is that if you have a perspective and opinion about that it shouldn't be temporary, reach out to your political leaders, reach out and let the city know that, as a taxpayer and as a citizen in Rochester, here's what I think about temporary versus a permanent office, for example. I think the group that's going to Evanston, I think, are visiting us, one of the cities where they actually have an office of racial justice and equity. We're going to learn more about what they do and what their charge is. But I like the fact that there's an office in that city that's named that, because to me, it says that there's somebody that has decided to, over a longer term, mind the store, right, around racial justice and equity in the city. So I think that this is our city, this is your city. So if you have an opinion, I think that you should make it known.
Yeah, and I have just a quick statement before we get back into the questions. regarding the timeline, as far as the length, to coincide with both of my fellow colleagues here, yeah, this is a work that's going to continue. But one thing that excited me particularly about this quote unquote experiment is that we're one of the first cities to take up this question seriously. It's been floated around, many times, but there have been little interest in actually pursuing wholeheartedly any type of reparations in the way that we're suggesting it. So, as being one of the first cities to actually take up the question seriously, it provides us a lot of opportunity and a lot of leeway to do something with lasting impact. Because, in my belief, that when we do this thing, when we do it right, other people will want to, see what we did and want to know how we did it and, start the conversation, because sometimes you just need that person to go forward and to see that it works. Once people see that something works, they're more apt and more willing to try it themselves. So I'm excited for this opportunity, although it's not perfect, because at the end of the day, everyone should know that reparations really should come from the federal government. However, in the meantime, as we work our way to that, being able to have something at this level and to show something that works on a local level can do wonders in promoting this cause, this noble cause, and as my colleague Jerome says, this just cause, and move it forward. So, although this committee is temporary, if we do this the right way, this will be a work that will continue on way past us. All right. So we are nearing the end of our session. If there
hold up, Demond. We got another guest in the
I
house.
think we have Gina.
Oh, I didn't even see that. Oh,
yeah.
Gina's there.
oh, excuse me.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead.
I'm
Then we
having
gonna
a
turn-
problem with my camera, but I don't mind saying what I need to say. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month, and thank you guys for being able to come on and bring this topic up to the citizens of Rochester. One of the things that I did want to bring up is that this has gone on for Hispanics as well. And back in March 22nd, 1878, if you want to quote me, was the abomination of Puerto Rico slavery. Okay, and we have so many more abominations from Cuba and other locations that had to happen, because to us, working in the fields was working in the fields, and that's it. It's like that's what we were doing, So being a sharecropper was another one. Being able to understand that and being able to bring up that conversation in the Hispanic community about slavery. So the fact that you're bringing it up, maybe we can talk more about even what happened with the Hispanics and why are we going through all the things that we're going through, especially when we don't want to speak up about, what we went through as slaves, or our generation, our parents, our grandparents as slaves, So I thought it was important to at least bring it up. I am the co-chair for the UBI. We will have ours soon. You'll stay tuned for that. I just wanted to make sure I put that in there.
Nice.
And that's so important. Thank you, Gina. And you didn't want to come on to say that. Anyway, so, because reparations, from a Pan-African point of view, is a global conversation, and, for me, point of personal privilege, just growing up in the Caribbean, and living fairly close to Puerto Rico, living fairly close to Martinique, living fairly close to Saint Martin. Saint Martin is a quote unquote Dutch and French island. Martinique, French. Puerto Rico speaks The only reason is because the colonizers spoke different languages. We're the same people, same struggle, so there's strength in that unity. So, and in this country, the Native American people, talk about who's owed some stuff, so the topic of reparations, like I said, should never not be discussed. And to Lashona's point, not only discussed, but okay, so when we gonna get to a point where we get to economic justice, literally checks to be written to do what? So I've been following, there's a Caribbean Reparations Committee that I follow very, very, very closely. And they created this 10-point plan that I shared with some of my colleagues. All of the things in the Caribbean won't be sort of transferable here, but there's some really, really important aspects that I think are. One in particular is in terms of, how do we pay reparations? Individual checks would be nice, but there are ways to, as an example, take care of the infrastructure, right? In a particular, whether it's neighborhood or entire zip code. How about, like I say, we have something called College Town. Well, how about College Town for the Northeast? With everything there owned by the people who live there. We could do that if we had the intestinal fortitude, and the us's make them do that, because that would be a form of reparations where everything in that community, was grocery store owned by the people, fresh food, everything that they needed was there, from healthcare, all the social determinants of health, so that the 8-year gap in expected life expectancy, over time would disappear because there was justice. So I think all those things are in play, so our work and the work of others who, would think like us, or even don't even think exactly like us, because, unity doesn't necessarily mean uniformity. We could do, there's so many things. So I think we're going to have to condense all that over time and come up with some really, really strong recommendations with feedback from people like Gina and people like Lashonda and others who are going to, I know, come to this table really, really quickly once we start to get into the masses.
Yeah, thank you for that. I agree with Jerome. Gina, thank you so much for coming on and sharing that. I think that people of color have to claim our story. And so I'm with you in your commitment to encourage the Latinx community to have these conversations about their own history, right, of enslavement. I think we have to unmute our voices, and I think we have to bring the highest level of courage to these conversations. I am one who believes that we can do both, and I think that we can talk about direct payment of attending to the economic damage that has happened, and that we need to attend to the structural damage that has happened in the systems that we have been forced to live in, to recreate in, to worship in, to breathe in. And so I think that if we're talking about repair, we have to do the repair on all the levels that it is required to do it. And I have no qualms about asking for what is just and what is right and what is fair, so that we can actually move our human family forward, right? To interact in the ways that we are supposed to. Absolutely, it should be comprehensive repair. I mean, how long? I think about my grandmother, who told me a story once that she used to pick cotton in the South, and my grandmother picked 400 pounds of cotton a week in the South. And at the end of the week, 400 pounds a day. And at the end of the week, she was given $4 at the end of the week. Well, we kind of did the calculation, went back, and really the prevailing wage should have been $20 at the end of the week. And that was probably still very low. But we just think about how much she was cheated and was taken from her over those years of in those cotton fields, picking that cotton day after day from sun up to sundown. And when she died, she didn't even have enough money to be buried, right? And so this history is not that far from us. We are just a generation or so away from the real damage that continues to impact us and impact our communities and the viability of our families. And so it's really important. I think it's urgent that we do this work of reparations, and that we that we work collectively to call for it, to stay true to the necessity of it, and to see it to its finish. That's what I think.
We had a couple comments while we were talking. Reverend Maggie Moore Holly states, it's important to educate our people about our history if we expect them to get behind this issue. Amen to that. All right. So is there anyone else on the screen that I'm missing? Making sure I'm not overlooking anyone. No. Okay. Okay. We have another comment from Alex Turner, who states, so grateful to hear this happening in our city. We'll be watching closely and rooting for these policies, reinvesting tax dollars in hardest hit neighborhoods. Thank you for your leadership. And they love the quote of where's College Town for the Northeast?
Just saying.
But the last thought that I have is I keep thinking of our city slogan, right? One city. And I think this work really is a pathway for us to really embody that, so that it doesn't just become a slogan. We can really become one city when we repair the harm that has been done to people who have been relegated to live on the margins, and to endure structural and economic and social oppression. Like, we can actually fix this, or at least we can attend to the redress of that harm that's being done. And that I'm very excited about, living in a city that has decided to take up the charge, and to do the hard work and ask the hard questions, and to make an effort to lead the way.
Amen. I just want to give one more look, see if anyone else wants to make a comment or ask a question or come on screen before we say our final words. Give a moment for that. And thank you for those individuals who are watching on Facebook. Definitely share this on your page, share this with your friends, let them know that Rochester is serious about the topic of reparations. We have put in the work and we are doing the work to try to create a better city, a better community, as well as a better nation. So, all right, people saying thank you. Okay. All right. Well, I guess as a way to wrap this up, if everyone could just say any final thoughts or closing statements, something that you would want Rochester to know.
I just want to encourage, first of all, I want to thank the people who are watching and who participated. I think that this conversation was very fruitful, and I'm looking forward to having an ongoing conversation. I also think when we think about reparations in the form of justice, it is wise to lean on our local and our state and our federal officials to be having these conversations in rooms where the community members don't have access to. And so again, thank you. And I look forward to hearing from you.
I heard once someone said, you know, you tell people what you think of them by what you ask of them. And so I think that this ask of our city to engage in reparations really says how much we think of Rochester and of our city and our ability and our capacity to repair the harm that has been done. And so it really is a compliment in my mind to what we believe is possible here. And so I'm very excited about this work, and I hope that you're excited with us. And I hope that you're thinking how you might support it and engage and bring other people that you're connected to into the conversation to engage as well.
Again, I want to reiterate, thank you for participating in this conversation with us tonight. I know there were many people that weren't able to get on, and so I just wanted to leave a few information about how do you find out about RUBI, which is our Reparations and UBI, Universal Basic Income Committee. You can go to our website at rockruby.com and learn more about our committee and the things that we are doing, because this is the first of many more discussions to come. Also, if there's a comment that you wanted to leave and you weren't able to do that tonight, you can also email us at rockruby@cityofrochester.gov. Thank you again.
Kate, you know I'm waiting for you, right? I'm a ladies first, man.
I would just say that first of all, I think, first of all, reparations is a long game. It's a long game. And I think it was stated earlier that we're just getting started. It's something that will probably be decades. I know there's a current concern about the amount of time we have. We don't really ever know how much time we have, but this is going to take a long time and it requires all of your thoughtful input. I hope that those of you who were not able to join us this evening can really give us some real tangible information about what that would look like for you or what you would like to see happen, because that will help us tremendously in driving forward this work, because the work is only now beginning. So thank you for joining us and give us your thoughts. We really value them. We need them.
And for me, you know, in addition to thank you, has been said before, you know, I want to close with two things. How we got here is very structured and layered and was done largely by policy. And I say that to say what was done largely by the acts of men can be undone by the acts of men and women. That's one. Secondly, and my final word is an African proverb that says, if we want to go fast, go alone. But if we want to go far, like what Kate just said, we have to go together. So please spread the news about this. We need the masses to have this conversation because we do want to go far. We want to go generations. How about at least the next, 400 years maybe? Yeah, so we can get to the starting line.
And I guess I will close us out. I will say that I would be remiss being a minister myself and not saying something about scripture. And going back to what my colleague Jerome said earlier, that, you know, this needs to be said from the pulpit. And hopefully there are some prophetic preachers there who are willing to speak truth to power and be able to speak about the tough topics like this. Because I do look forward to the day where this is, you know, as my colleague says, uncontroversial, where it's not controversial. But I would like to just leave with this, that reparations is scriptural. You ask me, where is it? Well, I remember a story where there was another group of people who were enslaved for 400 years, forced to make bricks without straw. And the Lord heard their cry. He saw their oppression. He saw the work and the discrimination that they experience day in and day out. So he sent a prophet to say, let my people go. Not only did Pharaoh eventually let his people go, but they didn't go empty-handed. You see, Egypt was forced to give up their gold, their silver, their precious metals, because God said, my people will not leave empty-handed. You see, when there has been wrong that has been done, there is a price to be paid. We have to seek that we don't end up empty-handed. You see, just like the Israelites back in Egypt didn't leave empty-handed, the African-American community does not need to leave empty-handed. We need to be able to live and work and be in a country where we can live off the fruits of our labor, which have been unjustly taken for us. So you see, after 250 years of chattel slavery, 100 years of segregation and Jim Crow and Black laws, 50 years and still going on of racial discrimination, you see, it's time for us to get that gold, that silver, because God has heard the cries of his people. He has seen the oppression of his people. And now I just ask you, who will be that prophet to say, let my people go? So with that being said, thank you for joining us. Please share this on your Facebook, on your Instagram, and please write. Please write. Go to your county ledge meetings. Go to city council meetings. Make your voice heard. Let the people in power know that we need this as a city. We deserve this as a people. So with that, I bid you adieu. Good night, and God bless.
Good night.